Welcome, seekers of gentle lore. Tonight, we delve into the heart of ancient wisdom, exploring the path of the witch, not as caricature, but as keeper of profound connection. You're about to discover the hidden power within the witch's understanding of nature's rhythms, a wisdom often misunderstood, yet deeply woven into the fabric of our world. For centuries, the witch has been a figure shrouded in mystery, feared by some, revered by others. But what if the true witch's heart isn't about spells or curses, but about a profound, almost forgotten language of the earth itself? A language that whispers of balance, healing, and the sacred dance between light and shadow. A language you too can begin to understand. Here at Luminous Lore and Rituals, we believe in unearthing these gentle truths, offering a sanctuary for sleep, study, and soulful practice. So, settle in, breathe deeply, and prepare to unlock the true meaning behind the witch's heart revealed. If you find solace and wisdom in these ancient tales, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel for weekly journeys into myth, ritual, and calming contemplation. Part 3, The Witch's Heart. Chapter 1, Foreboding in Asgard. What followed brought shame upon the gods, and mortals scarcely liked to speak of it. Gullveig the witch entered Asgard. Heimdall could not forbid her, and took a seat among the Æsir and the Vanir. She walked through the halls with a smile upon her face. Where she walked and where she smiled, care and dire foreboding came. Those who felt that creeping dread most were Bragi the poet and his wife, the fair and simple Iduna, keeper of the apples that held back age for the dwellers in Asgard. Bragi fell silent, his never-ending tale stopped. One day, overcome by the fear spreading through the worlds, Iduna slipped down Yggdrasil, the world tree, and no one remained to pluck the apples that kept the gods young. Then terror settled over Asgard. Strength and beauty began to fade. Thor found it hard to swing Mjolnir, his great hammer. The pale sheen beneath Freya's necklace dimmed. And still Gullveig walked the halls smiling, though all hated her for it. It was Odin and Frey who went in search of Iduna. She would have been returned at once if Frey had kept the magic sword he had bartered away for Gerda. Instead, in his quest he had to strive with one who guarded the lake where Iduna hid. Beli was that guardian. Frey overcame him at last with a weapon made from stag's antlers. The loss of his sword was a sorrow that came to wait upon Frey later. When the riders of Muspel rode against Asgard, the Vanir might have prevailed had Frey kept his blade. They found Iduna and brought her back, yet care and foreboding still crept through Asgard. The witch's influence had altered the thoughts of the gods. At length Odin judged Gullveig and pronounced her death. He decreed that only Gungnir, his spear, might slay one not of mortal race. Odin hurled Gungnir. The spear pierced Gullveig, but she stood smiling. A second time Gungnir struck. She was livid as one dead, yet she did not fall. A third time the spear flew. Pierced 3 times, the witch gave a scream that shook all Asgard and then fell dead to the earth. I have slain in these halls where slaying is forbidden, Odin said. Take the corpse of Gullveig and burn it upon the ramparts, so no trace of the witch who troubled us remain in Asgard. They carried Gullveig out and laid her upon a pyre on the ramparts. Fires were lit beneath the pile, and they called upon Hresvelgr to fan the flames. Hresvelgr is the giant, who on heaven's edge sits, in the guise of an eagle, and the winds, it is said, rush down on the earth, from his outspreading pinions. Far away Loki had been, for he now often left Asgard to look upon the wondrous treasure that had come from Andvari. It was Gullveig who had filled his thoughts with images of that hoard. When Loki returned and heard what had been done, a fury flamed up within him. He was one of those whose mind the witch had bent. Her whispers had turned him to hate the gods. Loki went to the place of burning. Gullveig's body lay reduced to ashes, but her heart had not burned. In his rage Loki took the heart from the pyre and ate it. Black and dreadful was that day in Asgard, the day Loki ate the heart that the flames would not consume. Chapter 2, Loki the Betrayer. He stole Frigga's dress of falcon feathers and, wearing it, flew from Asgard as a falcon. Jotunheim was his destination. The hawk's anger and fierceness lay in Loki as he crossed the giant's realm. The mountains and chasms of that dread land kindled him like wildfire. He saw whirlpools and smoking peaks and took a savage joy in them. Higher and higher he rose, and far to the south he made out the flaming realm of Muspelheim. Higher still, and through his falcon eyes he spied the gleam of Surtur's sword. All that fire and all that gloom would one day be hurled at Asgard and Midgard. Now, however, Loki felt no dread at the thought of ruin. He hovered about a dwelling in Jotunheim because he had seen 2 of the household there, women whose ugliness and malice pleased him, for his heart was turned against the Æsir and the Vanir. He paused at the open door and peered in. Geirröd, the fiercest of the giants, sat within. Beside him, squatting on the floor, were his two evil daughters, Gialp and Grape. They were huge and coarse, black and rugged, with horses' teeth and hair like manes. Gialp was the fouler of the pair, a nose a yard long, eyes set crookedly in her face. They scratched and spoke of Asgard and of those who dwelt there, of their hatred and of Thor in particular. "I would bind Thor in chains," Geirröd growled, "and beat him to death with my iron club." "I would grind his bones to powder," said Grape. "I would tear the flesh from his bones," said Gialp. "Father, can you not catch this Thor and bring him to us alive? Not so long as he has his hammer Mjolnir, and the gloves with which he grasps it, and the belt that doubles his strength." "Oh, if we could catch him without his hammer, his belt and his gloves," the two daughters cried together. At that very moment the falcon hovered before the doorway. Hungry for prey and mischief, the three set their hearts on seizing the bird. They did not stir from their places but called the child Glap, who swung upon the roof tree and bade him catch it. Hidden among glossy leaves, Glap climbed the ivy about the door. The falcon swooped near. Glap leapt and seized it by the wings, tumbling down through the ivy and shrieking as the bird beat, clawed, tore at him with beak and talon. Geirröd and his daughters rushed out and held the falcon. The giant peered into his captive's eyes and knew this was no mere bird. The look showed him kin to Alfheim or Asgard. He shut Loki in a box and left him to waste with hunger. When they next opened the box, Loki spoke. He promised to do any hurt that would please them if they would set him free. "Will you bring Thor to us?" Grape asked. "Will you bring him without his hammer, without the gloves with which he grips it, and without his belt?" Gialp demanded. "I will," Loki swore. "Thor is easily deceived. I can bring him to you without his hammer, his gloves or his belt." "Swear then by the gloom of Jotunheim," said Geirröd, "and we will let thee go." Loki swore, "Yea, and by the fires of Muspelheim," he added. They unbound him and he flew back to Asgard. He restored Frigga's feathered dress and told how he had been shut in Geirröd's house. Those who judged him blamed him for the theft, but thought his punishment sufficient. Loki resumed his talk among the dwellers in Asgard, his hatred, fanned by Gullveig's influence and by the heart he had eaten, simmering beneath his words. He spoke to Thor of the wonders he had seen in Jotunheim. Thor laughed at the memory of past disguises, how he once went as a bride to Turin, and Loki, with cunning, persuaded him to another journey. "And I must tell thee of what I saw in Geirröd's house," Loki said. "I saw hair, Sif's hair." "The hair of Sif, my wife?" Thor asked, startled. "Yes," Loki said. "The hair I once cut from Sif's head. Geirröd found it when I cast it away. They light their hall by Sif's hair. They need no torches where that hair hangs." "I would like to see it," said Thor. "Then visit Geirröd," Loki urged. "But if you go you must go without Mjolnir, without thy gloves and without thy belt." "Where shall I leave them?" Thor asked. "Leave them in Valasjaf, Odin's own hall," Loki replied. "Leave them there and come to Geirröd's house. Sure you will be well treated." Thor left his hammer, his gloves and his belt in Valasjaf and set out with Loki toward Jotunheim. Near the end of their road they came upon a broad river and met a young giant on the bank. Together the three began to ford it. Suddenly the waters rose. The current would have swept Loki and the young giant away but for Thor, who gripped them both. The flood climbed higher and the torrent grew rougher. Thor planted his feet on the riverbed and held firm. He caught a mountain ash at the bank and holding fast drew Loki and the young giant to safety. Looking upriver, Thor saw the cause, a giantess pouring a flood into the stream. He tore a rock from the bank and hurled it. It struck her and flung her into the river. She wallowed and fled yelping. That giantess was Gialp, Geirröd's evil daughter. The young giant Thor had aided would not be parted from his savior. He begged Thor to go visit his mother Jur, a wise old giantess living in a cave. Loki refused to go and was angry at Thor's kindness. Thor, seeing the youth was friendly, consented. "Go then, but hasten afterward to Geirröd's house." "I will wait for you there," Loki said. He watched Thor climb the hillside to Jur's cave until Thor had come down again and was on his way to Geirröd's dwelling. He watched Thor enter the house where he thought death awaited him. Then, mad with what he had set in motion, Loki ran along the ground with his head bent, like a bird. Jura sat at her corn grinding corn between two stones. When her son led Thor in she cried, "Who is this?" "One of the Æsir." "What giant would you harm now, Asa Thor?" "I mean no harm, old Jurr," Thor answered. "Look upon me, see that I have not Mjolnir, my hammer, nor my belt, nor my iron gloves." "Where in Jotunheim go you?" To the house of Geryid, a friendly giant. Geryid, a friend? You are mad. Is he friend to your maker? Even my son, this one who saved you from the flood, speaks of him. Tell him of Geryid, old mother, the youth urged. Do not go, Æsir. Do not go to his house. My word is given. I would be a craven to break it because an old crone at her corn bids me beware. I will give thee help, Æsir. Lucky for thee I am mistress of magical things. Take this staff, it is a staff of power and will serve thee in place of Mjolnir. I take it thankfully, old dame, though worm-eaten it be. Take also these mittens, they will serve instead of thy iron gloves. I take them thankfully though they be worn. And take this length of cord, it shall serve thee for thy belt of prowess. I will take it, though a ragged string. 'Tis well for thee, Æsir, that I am mistress of magic. Thor bound the worn string about his waist and felt the surge of strength as if his own belt were fastened. He drew on the mittens and took the staff. The old woman's gifts were truly magical. He left Jurar's cave and went toward Geryid's house. Loki was not there. For the first time doubt crept upon Thor. Perhaps Jurar was right and a trap was set. The hall was empty. He passed into a great stone chamber and found no one there either, but in the center stood a stone seat. Thor sat. No sooner had he done so than the seat shot upward. Thor would have been crushed against the roof had he not held his staff aloft. The staff's power and the string's strength thrust the chair downward. The stone seat crashed onto the floor. From beneath there came horrible screams. Thor lifted the seat and found two broken, ugly bodies, Gialp and Grape, crushed beneath it, where they had hidden to watch his death. The stone meant for him had slain them instead. Thor strode from that chamber with his teeth clenched. A great fire burned in the hall, and beside it stood Geryid, long-armed and cruel. He held the tongs in the flame. As Thor drew near, the giant flung a blazing wedge of iron from them. The iron whistled for Thor's brow. Thor, with Jurar's mittens about his hands, caught the wedge and hurled it back. It struck Geryid on the brow and went blazing through him. Geryid fell into the fire. The burning iron made a livelier blaze about him. When Thor later came to Jurar's cave to return the string, mittens and staff she had lent him, he saw Geryid's dwelling all aflame, as if the fires of Muspelheim had been kindled round it. Chapter 3, Loki Against the Æsir. The Æsir were guests of the Vanir at Frey's palace. The dwellers in Asgard met and feasted in friendship. Odin and Tyr were there, Vidar and Vali, Njord, Frey, Heimdall and Bragi. The Æsir and the Vanna sat among them. Frigga, Freya, Iduna, Gerda, Skadi, Sif and Nanna. Thor and Loki were not at the table, they had gone out together. In Frey's hall the vessels shone like gold. They gave light to the table and moved of their own accord to serve the feast. All seemed peaceable and friendly, until Loki entered. Frey smiled and showed Loki a bench beside Bragi and next to Freya. Loki would not sit. He shouted, "Not beside Bragi will I sit, not beside Bragi, the most craven of all the dwellers in Asgard." Bragi sprang up at the insult, but his wife, the mild Iduna, quieted him. Freya turned to Loki and rebuked him for speaking such words at a feast. "Freya," Loki answered, "why were you not so mild when Odin was with you? Would it not have been better to be wifely with your husband instead of breaking faith for a necklace that you craved from the giant women?" Amazement fell at the bitterness in Loki's tone and look. Tyr and Njord rose. Then Odin's voice made them still. Only the All-Father's words could quiet the hall. "Take the place beside Vidar, my silent son, O Loki," Odin said, "and let thy tongue which drips bitterness be silent. All the Æsir and the Vanir listen to thy words, O Odin, as if thou wert always wise and just." Loki replied. "But must we forget that thou didst bring war when thou didst fling thy spear at the Vanir envoys? Didst thou not let me work craftily on the builder of Asgard's wall for a price? And when a ransom had to be made, didst thou not think of gold and bring the witch Gulvig out of the cave with the dwarf's treasure? Thou art not always wise nor always just, O Odin. We here need not heed thee as if thou wert." Skadi, Njord's wife, answered with the fierceness of her giant blood. "Why should we not rise and drive this chattering crow from the hall?" she cried. "Skadi," Loki said, "remember the ransom for thy father's death has not been paid. Thou wert glad to take a husband instead. Remember who killed thy giant father. It was I, Loki. And I have paid thee no ransom, though thou dwellest now among us in Asgard." Loki then fixed his eyes on Frey, and all knew bitter words would follow. Tyr rose quickly. "Not against Frey mayst thou speak, O Loki. Frey is generous. He spares the vanquished and frees the captive." "Cease," Loki replied. "Thou mayst not always have a hand to hold that sword of thine. Remember this saying of mine in days to come." "Frey," Loki went on, because thou art giver of the feast they think I will not speak true against thee. I am not to be bribed by a feast. Didst thou not send Skirnir to Gymir's dwelling to beguile Gymir's flighty daughter? Didst thou not bribe him to frighten her into a marriage with thee, thou who, men say, wert the slayer of her brother? Yefry. Thou didst part with a charge, the magic sword that should have been kept for battle. Thou hadst cause to grieve when thou met Beli by the lake. At this the Vanir rose, faces threatening Loki. Sit still ye Vanir, Loki railed. If the Æsir are to bear Jotunheim's and Muspelheim's war upon Asgard, it was your part to stand with them on Vigurd's plain. But already ye have lost the battle for Asgard, for Frey bartered away the weapon placed in his hand for Gerda the giantess. Ah! Surtur shall triumph over you because of Frey's bewitchment. Horror spread at the thought that Loki would speak of Surtur's triumph. All would have seized him, but Odin's voice rang out again. At the entrance stood Thor, hammer upon his shoulder, iron gloves on his hands, the belt of prowess about him. His eyes blazing on Loki. Ha, Loki Betrayer, Thor shouted. Thou didst seek to leave me dead in Geirrod's house. Now thou shalt meet death by the stroke of this hammer. His hands rose to hurl Mjolnir. Odin's words stayed him. Not in this hall may slaying be done, son Thor. Keep thy hands upon thy hammer. Shrinking from Thor's wrath, Loki left the hall. He passed beyond Asgard's walls, crossed Bifrost, the Rainbow Bridge, and cursed it, longing for the day when Muspelheim's armies would sweep it down in their rush against Asgard. East of Midgard lay a place worse than any in Jotunheim, Jarnvid the Iron Wood. There dwelt the foulest witches, ruled by a hag who bore many sons that took the shape of wolves. Two were Skoll and Hati, hunters of Sol the sun and Mani the moon. A third, Managarm, would be filled with men's blood, swallow the moon and stain heaven and earth with gore. To Jarnvid Loki journeyed. He wed one of the witches there, Angerboda, and she bore him children that took dread shapes. Loki's offspring were the most terrible foes that would arise against the Æsir and the Vanir in the time called the Twilight of the Gods. Chapter 4 The Valkyrie. Against the time when the riders of Muspelheim, with giants and the dark powers of the underworld, would bring on battle, Odin All-Father prepared a host of defenders for Asgard. They were not Æsir nor Vanir but mortal men, heroes chosen from the slain on Midgard's battlefields. To choose these heroes, and to grant victory to those he willed, Odin sent battle maidens to the fields of war. Beautiful and fearless they were, and wise as well. To them Odin had shown the runes of wisdom. Valkyries, the choosers of the slain, they were named. Those taken from the field became Odin's champions, called the Einherjar. For them he made ready a great hall, Valhalla, the hall of the slain. Valhalla had 540 doors, and through each might pass 800 champions. Every day the champions donned their armor, took their weapons from the walls, and went forth to fight one another. Wounded men were made whole again. In peace and fellowship they sat to the feast Odin prepared. Odin himself drank wine with his champions, though he ate no meat. For meat they had the boar Saehrimnir. Each day the boar was killed and cooked, and every morning it was whole again. For drink they had the mead made from the milk of the goat Hydrun, which browsed on the leaves of the tree Laradir. And the Valkyries, wise and fearless, moved among them, filling the drinking horns with heady mead. Youngest of the Valkyries was Brynhild. Yet Odin had shown her more of the runes of wisdom than to any of her sisters. When her time came to go down into Midgard, he gave her a swan feather dress, such as he had given to 3 other Valkyrie sisters, Alvit, Alrun, and Hladgrun. In the dazzling plumage of a swan the young battle maiden flew from Asgard. She had not yet been to battle. Waters drew her, and waiting on the All-Father's will, she sought out a lake with golden sands and bathed there as a maiden. Near this lake dwelt a young hero named Agnar. One day, as Agnar lay by the shore, he saw a swan of dazzling plumage settle among the reeds. While she bathed, the swan feather dress slipped from her, and Agnar saw the swan change to a woman. So bright her hair, so swift her movement, he knew her for one of Odin's battle maidens, one of those who give victory and choose the slain. Daring, Agnar resolved to keep her, even if he brought on himself Odin's wrath. He hid the swan feather dress in the reeds. When she came from the water she could not fly. Agnar returned the dress only after she promised to be his battle maiden. As they spoke, Brynhild saw in him a hero whom Asgard might aid. Agnar was brave and noble. Brynhild stayed with him as his battle maiden. She taught him much of the runes of wisdom she knew, and she showed him that Odin's last hope lay in the bravery of men, that with the chosen from the slain as his champions he would make stand for Asgard. Always Brynhild rode with Agnar's host. Above the battle she hovered, her bright hair and flashing dress outshining spears, swords and shields. But the grey-bearded King Helmgunr waged war against young Agnar. Odin favored Helmgunr and promised him victory. Brynhild knew the Allfather's will. Yet she gave victory to Agnar, not to Helmgunr. The moment she thwarted Odin's will, Brynhild was doomed. Never again might she enter Asgard. She was now a mortal woman, and the Norns began to spin her mortal thread. Odin was sorrowful that the wisest of his battle maidens could no longer walk the benches at Valhalla. He rode down on Sleipnir to where Brynhild lay. When he came before her, it was his head that was bowed first, not hers. She now knew the bitter price the world of men paid for Asgard's strength. The bravest and noblest were taken from Midgard to fill Odin's ranks. Brynhild's heart swelled with anger at Asgard's rulers. She cared no more to belong to them. Odin, she answered when he asked if she would have aught in her mortal life, not save this, that in my mortal life no one but a man without fear, the bravest hero in the world, may claim me for wife. Allfather bowed in thought. It shall be as thou hast asked, he said. Only he who is without fear shall come near thee. On the mountain called Hindfell he had a hall built, facing south. 10 dwarfs built it of black stone. Round it Odin set a wall of mounting, circling fire. He did more. He took a thorn from the tree of sleep and put it into the flesh of the battle maiden. With helmet on and the breastmail of the Valkyrie upon her, Odin lifted Brynhild in his arms, carried her through the wall of mounting, circling fire, and laid her on the couch within the hall. There she would lie in slumber until the hero without fear rode through the flames and woke her to mortal life. He bade her farewell and rode back to Asgard on Sleipnir. He could not foresee what fate would be hers as a mortal. The fire he left mounted and circled the hall the dwarfs had built. For ages that flame would stand as a fence around Brynhild, once a Valkyrie who lay sleeping upon Hindfell. Chapter 5. The Children of Loki. Against the time when the riders of Muspelheim, with giants and the dark powers of the underworld, would bring battle, Odin Allfather prepared defenders for Asgard. They were not Æsir nor Vanir but mortal men, heroes chosen from the slain on Midgard's battlefields. Odin sent battle maidens to the fields to choose these heroes and to grant victory to those he willed. Beautiful, fearless, and wise, Odin had shown them the runes of wisdom. They were called Valkyries, the choosers of the slain. Those taken from the field became the Einherjar. For them Odin made Valhalla, the hall of the slain. 540 doors, and from each might pass 800 champions. Each day the champions donned armor, took their weapons and fought one another. Wounded men were made whole again, and in peace they sat to the feast Odin prepared. Odin drank with them but ate no meat. Their meat was the boar Saerimnir, slain and cooked each day and whole again by morning. Their drink was the mead from the goat Hydrun, which browsed on the leaves of the tree Laridir. The Valkyries moved among them, filling the drinking horns with heady mead. Youngest of the Valkyries was Brynhild, yet Odin had shown her more of the runes than to any sister. When she was sent to Midgard he gave her a swan feather dress, as he had given to Alvid, Alrun, and Hladgrun. In that dazzling plumage she flew down from Asgard. Not yet to battle, she was drawn to waters. Awaiting the Allfather's will, she sought a lake with golden sands and bathed there as a maiden. Near the lake lived a young hero, Agnar. One day as he lay by the shore, a swan of dazzling plumage came down among the reeds. While she bathed, the swan dress slipped off and the swan became a woman. Bright of hair and swift of movement, she was a Valkyrie, one who gives victory and chooses the slain. Daring Agnar hid her swan feather dress so she could not fly away. He returned it only after she promised to be his battle maiden. Brynhild saw in him a hero whom Asgard might aid. Brave and noble, Agnar welcomed her learning. She taught him what she knew of the runes and showed that Odin's last hope lay in the bravery of men. The chosen from the slain would be his champions. Always she hovered above Agnar's host, her bright hair and flashing dress outshining spears and shields. But the grey-bearded King Helmgunr made war on Agnar. Odin favored Helmgunr and promised him victory. Brynhild knew Odin's will, yet she gave the victory to Agnar. The instant she thwarted the Allfather, Brynhild was doomed. Never again could she enter Asgard. She was now mortal, and the Norns began to weave her fate. Odin sorrowed that his wisest battle maiden would not walk the benches of Valhalla. He rode on Sleipnir to Brynhild. When he stood before her, it was his head that bowed. She understood the bitter price the world of men paid for Asgard's strength. The bravest were taken from Midgard to fill Odin's ranks. Her heart swelled with anger against Asgard's rulers. She no longer wished to belong to them. Odin, she said when he asked what she would have in mortal life, not save this, that no one but a man without fear, the bravest hero in the world, may claim me for wife. All-Father bowed. It shall be as thou hast asked, he said. Only he who is without fear shall come near thee. On Hindfell he had a hall built, facing south. 10 dwarfs built it of black stone. Round it Odin set a wall of mounting, circling fire. He took a thorn from the tree of sleep and put it into Brynhild's flesh. With helmet on and breastmail upon her, he carried her through the wall of circling fire and laid her upon the couch within the hall. There she would sleep until the hero without fear rode through the flames and woke her to mortal life. He rode back to Asgard on Sleipnir. He could not foresee her mortal fate. The fire remained, mounting and circling the hall the dwarfs had built. For ages that flame would fence Brynhild, once a Valkyrie, while she lay sleeping upon Hindfell. Chapter 6, Baldur's Doom. Against the time when the riders of Muspelheim, with the giants and the dark powers of the underworld, would bring battle, Odin All-Father prepared 2 places that gave strength and joy to the Æsir and the Vanir. The garden where Iduna gathered her apples, and the peace stead, where Baldur the well-beloved dwelt in the palace Breidablik. In the peace stead no crime had been done, no blood shed, no falseness spoken. Contentment came to all when they thought on that place. Had it not been for Baldur's presence, the minds of the Æsir and the Vanir might have turned gloomy and stern, thinking always of the dire things arrayed against them. Baldur was beautiful, so fair that the white blossoms of the earth took his name. He was happy, so happy that all birds sang his name. So just and wise was he that his judgments were not to be altered. Nothing foul or unclean had ever come near his dwelling. 'Tis Breidablik called, where Baldur the Fair hath built him a bower, in the land where I know least loathliness lies. Healing was done in Baldur's stead. Tyr's wrist was made whole after Fenrir's bite. Their Frey's mind grew less troubled by the foreboding Loki had stirred in him. After Fenrir was bound, the Æsir and Vanir knew a time of contentment. They spent bright days in Baldur's stead, listening to the birds. There Bragi the poet wove into his endless tale the story of Thor's adventures among the giants. But foreboding reached even Baldur's home. One day little Nasa, child of Freya and the lost Odin, came in such sorrow that none outside could comfort her. Nanna, Baldur's gentle wife, took the child on her lap and soothed her. Nasa told of a fearful dream. She had dreamed of Hela, half-living woman, half-corpse, coming into Asgard and saying, "A lord of the Æsir I must have to dwell with me in my realm beneath the earth." Nasa's fear was such that she fell into deep sorrow. Silence fell when Nasa told her dream. Nanna looked to Odin, and Odin, looking at Frigga, saw fear enter her breast. Odin went to his watchtower Hlitzjaf and waited until Hugin and Munin returned. His ravens flew through the world and brought him news. They told how Ratatosk the squirrel had heard from the brood of serpents gnawing at Yggdrasil's root, that in Hela's house a bed was spread and a chair left empty for some lordly comer. Odin thought it better that Fenrir ranged through Asgard than that Hela win one of them to fill that seat. He mounted Sleipnir and rode toward the abodes of the dead. For 3 days and nights he rode in silence and darkness. Once Garm, a hound of Helheim, broke loose and bayed upon Sleipnir's tracks. For a day and night Garm pursued them, and Odin smelled blood from the hound's jaws. At last he came to a field of the dead, wrapped in shrouds. He called one up, Valva, a dead prophetess. When he spoke her name he uttered a rune that breaks the dead's sleep. There was a groan, a head and shoulders rose from the shrouded ones. Who calls on Valva the prophetess? The rains have drenched my flesh and the storms have shaken my bones for more seasons than the living know. No living voice has right to wake me, she said. It is Vegdom the wanderer who calls. For whom is a bed prepared and a seat left empty in Hela's house? For Baldur, Odin's son, is the bed prepared and the seat left empty. Now let me go back to my sleep with the dead. Odin pressed on. Who stands with an unbowed head and will not lament for Baldur? Answer Valva. Thou sayest far, but thou canst not see clearly. Thou art Odin. I can see clearly but not far. Let me go back. Valva. Odin cried again. Thou canst not wake me any more until Muspelheim's fires blaze above my head, she answered. There followed silence in the dead field. Odin turned Sleipnir and rode back through gloom for 4 days to Asgard. Frigga had felt Odin's fear. She looked toward Baldur and saw Hela's shade between her and her son. Yet she heard the birds sing in the peace stead and thought Baldur safe. To be sure, she went to everything that could harm him and took from each an oath. Fire, water, iron and all metals, earths and stones, great trees, birds and beasts, creeping things, poisons and diseases, all swore not to harm Baldur. When Frigga told what she had done, gloom lifted. Hela might have a seat prepared below, but fire nor water, nor iron nor any metal, nor earth nor stone nor great wood, nor bird nor beast nor creeping thing, nor poison nor disease could help her take Baldur. Hela has no arms to draw you to her, cried the Æsir and the Vanir to Baldur. Hope returned. They made games to honor Baldur. In the peace stead they brought all the things that had sworn safely against him. Neither thrown battle axe nor sling stone, nor burning brand nor flood could harm him. The Æsir and Vanir laughed to see missiles fall harmlessly while dwarfs and friendly giants joined the sport. But Loki the hater came with that throng and watched. He saw Baldur smiling under blows that could not hurt him. He changed shape into an old woman and mingled with those making sport. He spoke to dwarfs and friendly giants. None would tell him the meaning but sent him to Frigga. At Fensala, Frigga took the pretended old woman kindly. Loki, calling himself Groa the Enchantress, said he could draw stones from Thor's head and spoke a true tale he had heard. Now I remember the rest of the charm, he said, but will you not tell me, O Queen, what these games mean? Frigga told him. They throw all manner of heavy and dangerous things at Baldur, and all Asgard cheers because none will hurt him. From all things, lady? Is there nothing that has not sworn? There is one thing I passed by, the mistletoe. It is small and weak, rootless, growing on the eastern side of Valhalla. Surely the mistletoe could not harm Baldur? The pretended enchantress hobbled away. Not far did Loki go. He hurried to the eastern side of Valhalla where a great oak bore a little bush of mistletoe. He broke off a spray and went back to the games. All were laughing as Loki drew near. Giants overthrew, dwarfs could not throw far, Æsir and Vana threw wide. One stood joyless. Hoda, Baldur's blind brother. Why enter not the sport? Loki asked in his old woman voice. I have no missile, Hoda said. Hermod the nimble, Baldur's brother, stepped forth. He mounted Sleipnir and rode down to Hela. For 9 days and nights Hermod rode through rugged glens into darkness. He came to the river Gile and to the gold-glittering bridge. The pale maid who guards the bridge spoke. The hue of life is on thee, said Modguder. Why dost thou journey to Hela's realm? I am Hermod. I go to see if Hela will take ransom for Baldur. Fearful is Hela's house. All round it is a steep wall, even thy steed might hardly leap. The threshold is precipice, the bed care, the table hunger, the hanging burning anguish. If all things still lament Baldur, Hela will have to take ransom. Thou mayst not pass until it is sure that all things lament him. Go back and make sure. If thou return and tell me all things still lament, I will let thee pass. Hermod rode back and found all things lamenting for Baldur. Joyously he rode on, met the Vanir, and together they sought everything to learn whether each still wept. But at a cave he found a hag with blackened teeth who raised no lament. She was thocht in guise. If thou art the crow, make lament for Baldur, Hermod said. I, Thocht, will make no lament. Let Hela keep what she holds, the hag answered. I will weep dry tears for him. She hobbled into her cave and a crow flew out. Hermod knew she was Thocht and followed her as she croaked, let Hela keep what she holds. Then Hermod knew, there was one thing in the world that would not lament for Baldur. The Vanir returned with him. Head bowed over Sleipnir's mane, Hermod rode into Asgard. They prepared Baldur for the burning. First they covered his body with a rich robe, and by it each laid his most precious possession. One by one they kissed his brow and took their leave. Nanna, his gentle wife, flung herself upon his breast. Her heart broke, she died of grief. The Æsir and the Vanir wept anew. They placed Nanna's body beside Baldur's. Baldur was to lie upon his great ship, Ringhorn, with Nanna beside him. The ship would be launched and set aflame. No one among the Æsir or the Vanir could set the great ship afloat. They sent for Hyrrokin, a giantess. She came riding a monstrous wolf, its bridle braided of twisted serpents. 4 giants held the wolf fast when she landed. With a single mighty shove she sent Ringhorn into the sea. The rollers struck out fire as the vessel dashed away. Fires mounted the ship. In the blaze one figure was seen bending over Baldur, whispering into his ear, Odin All-Father. Then he stepped down from the ship, and the flames rose into a mighty burning. Speechless, with tears upon their faces, the Æsir and the Vanir watched while all things lamented, Baldur the Beautiful is dead, is dead. What did Odin whisper into Baldur's ear as the flames rose? He whispered of a heaven above Asgard that Surtur's fire could not reach, and of a time when life and beauty would return after the worlds of men and gods had been tried through with fire. Take this and throw it, Loki said. It is a twig of the mistletoe. I cannot see, Hoda answered. I will guide thy hand, Loki said. He put the twig in Hoda's hand and guided it. The twig flew and struck Baldur's breast. Baldur fell with a deep groan. The Æsir, Vanna, dwarfs and friendly giants stood in doubt and amazement. Loki slipped away. Blind Hoda stood still, not knowing his throw had killed Baldur. A wailing rose about the peace stead. The Æsir and the Vanna lamented. Odin came among them. Hela has won our Baldur, Odin said to Frigga as they bent over their son. Nay, Frigga answered. Frigga asked who would go and ride down to Hela's realm and ask ransom for Baldur. Whoever would seek the queen might win her favor and bring Baldur back. Odin's steed was ready. Chapter 7, Loki's Punishment. Let Hela keep what she holds. Let Hela keep what she holds, croaked a crow as she flew north. That crow was the hag Thocht in shape, and Thocht was Loki. He went into the waste of Jotunheim and lived there as a crow, hiding from the god's wrath. He told the giants that the time had come to build the ship Naglfar, the ship made of the nails of dead men, destined to sail to Asgard at Ragnarok with the giant Hreimr at the helm. Hearing him, the giants began the ship's work, the very thing gods and men had prayed long for would never be built. Tired of Jotunheim, Loki flew south as a lizard and hid among Muspelheim's rocks. He made the fire giants glad when he told them of Frey's lost sword and of Tyr's missing hand. Yet in Asgard one still wept for him, Siguna, his wife. Though he had forsaken her and shown her hatred, she wept for the husband who had brought so much evil. Loki left Muspelheim and came among men. He chose the river where, long before, he had slain the otter, on the very rock where the otter had eaten the salmon that day. There he built a house with 4 doors so he might see every way of escape. He kept, for safety, the power to turn himself into a salmon. Often he swam in the river as a fish. Even the fishes he hated. From flax and yarn he wove a net so men might catch them. The god's anger did not abate. Loki, as Thocht, had given Hela power to hold Baldur, and he had put the sprig of mistletoe in Hoda's hand. Baldur was dead, Asgard felt emptied, and the Æsir and Vanir brooded on the dire things arrayed against them. Odin in Valhalla busied himself with ways to gather heroes to defend Asgard. At last the gods found Loki's dwelling. He was weaving his net when they came from 4 directions. He flung the net into the fire and sprang into the river as a salmon. The gods found only burned-out embers. One among them read the signs in those ashes. From the marks of the burnt net he made a new net and set out down the river, dragging it through the water. Loki, seeing his own weaving used against him, hid between 2 stones. The net passed over him. The gods felt the net touch something at the bottom. They fastened weights and dragged it again. Loki rose and swam for the sea. As he leaped over a waterfall, the gods followed, the net behind him. Thor waited, ready to seize him. At the river mouth a great eagle hovered over the waves. Loki turned back, leapt to clear the net, but Thor, near the net, seized the salmon's tail. Loki struggled like no fish before. He freed all but his tail. Thor held on, drew him among the rocks and forced him back into his proper shape. They bound him in a cavern, tied to 3 sharp rocks with cords of wolf sinew that were turned to iron bands. Skadi, with her fierce giant blood, found a serpent and hung it above Loki's head. Its venom fell drop by drop, bringing him endless agony. Siguna, pitying, exiled herself from Asgard and sat in the darkness and cold of the cavern. She held a cup to catch the venom, easing his torment. Now and then she had to turn aside and empty the cup, and then the drops fell on Loki and he screamed and twisted in his bonds. Men felt the earthquake when he writhed. There Loki remained, bound and tormented, until the coming of Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods.